Good evening and welcome to another in our series of TalkSports. And I hope that everything is fine with everyone. We welcome you to another edition of our TalkSports, a weekly program actually that looks at major developments in sports in Grenada and around the region. And also we speak to the movers and shakers of sports, documenting in some instances the accomplishments as well as speaking to administrators, sportsmen, and sportswomen. Well, to our program today, we'll focus on some cricket as we did last week. And this time we have with us the president of the Grenada Cricket Association, Mr. Dwain Gill, who is also the acting CEO of Windward Islands, the Windward Islands Cricket Board, WICB. Yeah, was once the Windward Islands Cricket Board of Control. It's now the Windward Islands Cricket Board, WI, and I think they can take the acronym of WICB now that there's Windies Cricket. And he's also, as I should say, explain, he's also the acting CEO, well, the CEO of Windwards Cricket Inc., which actually owns the franchise of the Windward Islands Volcano that participates in the regional 4-day and 50 overs tournament. Good evening to you, Dwain Gill.
Well, good evening to you, Michael, and as well as your viewers, listeners. It's always a pleasure to speak to you as one of the journalists, really into sports, Caribbean journalists. Although you have a bias towards the track and field and the football, but it's always good to speak to you about sports in general and cricket in particular.
I will try to rephrase that. I have a bias towards sports. but interesting enough, you said that, and then there was once upon a time football was saying I had a bias towards cricket. I guess somewhat because we happened to work along very good probably about 2-3 years ago on some various projects and things like that. So we have been able to, work along with you and the Cricket Association in some projects and things like that. So, but glad to know that you're okay, Dwain. And as I always do, how has the pandemic been treating you?
Well, for me personally, it has been challenging, but life goes on. We are concerned about the children and so on, going to school and remaining safe, and we were able to do that. And then, of course, would come the cricket aspect of things. And some of us really live for cricket, and it was difficult not being able to really play cricket for the period. We did have some cricket on television, starting with the West Indies and England series, and then the CPL. But on a personal note, it has been difficult as for anybody else. And we're just happy that we are lucky. Perhaps in Grenada, we have managed risk well, and we are saying that we don't have any confirmed cases. So we're very thankful for that, and we hope that will continue, so that we can really get back to some sense of normalcy sooner rather than later.
Okay, and on the cricket side itself, locally, has it really affected competition and some of your actual competitions? I should say, yeah, competitions for 2020.
Oh yes. In terms of Grenada, when we had the lockdown and so on, it was actually in the middle of our cricket season. So a lot of the parishes were in the middle of their seasons. We were at the GCA. We were playing the inter-parish competition, the Super 50 competition. I think we had just about 3 or 4 matches to go, then a semi-final and a final. So we weren't able to complete that. And a lot of the parishes, I'm not sure any of them were able to complete their tournaments. So it happened just around March, and that's in the middle of our cricket season. Since then, we haven't been able to play anything. As you know, there are a lot of protocols that have to be followed, a lot of regulations and guidelines. So it was very difficult for us, the cricketing fraternity, not being given that opportunity to play. Safety came first, And just like anybody else, we really were, or it was a difficult period for us, and we're hoping that, we can get back out there onto the fields, maybe not as before, but we're hoping to do that very shortly.
But would you say, in light of the recent CPL in Trinidad and then the what's happening in England, this it's encouraging for cricket to resume, and something that the local cricket association probably can take a page out of and see if they can resume some level of cricket in Grenada?
Yeah, it was encouraging when we saw the cricket on TV. I mean, of course, by a secure environment and so on, and that takes a lot of money and so on. But that was very encouraging, especially CPL. And we had a few players in the CPL as well. We had Fletcher, we had Preston McSween, and we had a few other Windwards players, Obed McCoy and Kevin Hodge and the likes. So we looked at that. We had several meetings via Zoom over the period. That's the Greater Cricket Association, and we were really contemplating what it is we should have done. We said, well, okay, it's not the cricket season now, it's more into the football season, into the rainy season. So basically we weren't thinking about having any form of cricket for the end of the year. We would have probably should have played the under 15 tournament in the summer. When I say summer, August, that couldn't take place. We had one or two other tournaments planned. We had the Windwards tournament planned in April. We had Jersey as a country was supposed to come here in April as well to play matches against the Grenada team as well as the Windwards Volcanoes. We didn't have that. And, so we said probably we should not have any cricket at all. But just in our last GCA meeting, we meet every first Wednesday of the month. And we've been having Zoom meetings, but we did have for the first time last month, or was it this month? This month, our first face-to-face meeting at the stadium. And of course, we practice social distancing and those types of things. And, I did start the meeting by saying I felt uncomfortable having to just sit here and see that we cannot play any cricket for the rest of the year. It was really hurting me. So I told the other members of the board that basically, if there is an opportunity for us to play, because we saw the GFA having some football and so on at the stadium, with no spectators and the streaming and so on. And the idea came to my head. I must give the GFA some credit for starting the ball rolling in terms of sports. So we looked to see what was happening there. And in my view, it looked very possible that we could at least finish our Super 50 tournament if perhaps we were to have all our matches at the National Stadium, perhaps in October. So we've started that process of planning. We are now seeking permission from the relevant authorities to start back that particular tournament. Of course, we had to check the parishes and so on, because we were not sure if all of the parishes would want to play. Of course, financially we are affected and we are negatively affected. There's no money around. So how are we going to get through a tournament? Cricket is one of the most expensive sports. How are we going to get through the tournament, knowing fully well that all of the teams would have to come to St. George's at the National Stadium to play in an environment where there are no spectators? I mean, we always argued before that cricket was always practicing social distancing, because no one really comes to watch local cricket at the developmental level. Perhaps in St. Andrew and in Carriacou, you have people coming out and watching the games. But in the stadium, you had no one coming out to watch. So we are thinking about it. We are planning towards it. We are planning to have a situation where we would finish that tournament in October and have matches on Saturday and Sunday at the National Stadium. And we are looking at the possibility of streaming those games, so at least the players would have something to look forward to and they can showcase their talent. So that is what we are looking at this point in time. We were supposed to host the Windwards on the 15th tournament in December. We are not sure if that can take place. We have not made a decision on that as yet. But certainly for the immediate future, and we're talking about October, in the first instance, in terms of local cricket, we are planning to have something at the National Stadium.
And in addition to that, if the rules are relaxed a bit, I assume that the Cricket Association will look in terms of spectators being accommodated at some of the matches, right?
Yeah, as long as it allows. So we were hearing that you can have in the stadium about 50 spectators at this point in time. Hopefully that can be relaxed when we get to October. So as long as we can do that, we will allow that. And but of course we want to still have the streaming, and we wanted to get into the streaming for some time now. But of course there is a significant cost there as well. But we figure that if we can get a couple of spectators in, we will go for it. But we want the streaming as well.
And how, if we can just probably flip on the other side, how will that sort of arrangement and the effect it is having on the on cricket, and not just playing cricket but cricket preparation for cricket as well, is affecting your franchise team, which is actually based in Grenada? That's the Windward Islands Volcanoes.
Yeah, well, it was a big blow. First of all, when this thing struck, the team was engaged in the West Indies 4-day tournament. The team was actually in Trinidad, and for some reason, I think we were in third place at that point in time in the standings, and I think we lost that match in about 2.5 days. The report from the players was that they were just thinking about getting out of Trinidad, and then that was the point in time that the Cricket West Indies aborted the tournament. So we had to get players, some of them back to Grenada, and some of them left Trinidad and went back to Dominica or St. Vincent. Some of them came here to collect the stuff to go back to either Dominica, St. Lucia, or St. Vincent. So that was the first blow. And then we just didn't know what was happening. And so the players were home for quite some time. Around June the 30th or July the 1st would have been the end of the contract period for those players, because we contract 15 players. 15 players. And the contract term would have expired, and we had to contract another 15. And we did that, but the players were not able to return to Grenada to actually, train and so on. I'm happy to report now that 10 of the 15 contracted players have started training at the National Stadium, and they started training last week. Of course, our head coach was involved in the CPL, so even when he came back, he had to go through a period of quarantine because he came from Trinidad, and although they were in a type of bubble internally, Trinidad became what we call a red zone. And so he had to really stay in for those 14 days or so. I think it's 10 or 14 days, and he had to quarantine, even though he had been tested about 7 times and probably tested the day before he came back and so on. So the coach has now joined or rejoined the team, and so we are now having sessions at the stadium with 10 of the players. We have 6 Grenadian players. Well, 5 of them have shown up to practice because Preston McSween is one of those who came from Trinidad, so he is still he has to report on the 1st of October. So we've gotten the ball rolling. We've gotten the ball rolling with some physical testing and so on, and some light batting and bowling, and the hope is that another 3 of those players be in on the 1st of October. Those are the players that were returning from CPL. They had to go back to their countries, spend the 14 days, and then we give them an extra 7 days, and then to come back here. So 13 of those players should be here by October the 1st, and then we expect the other 2 to be here sometime in November. One of them, Kevin Stout, the overseas player, he's engaged in a tournament in Barbados, and Kevin Hodge as well. He may be playing in that tournament in Barbados. So we expect the majority of the players, well, they are already here and they are training. And we're very happy about that. And we hope to keep them engaged because we do not know what the season would be like officially. Normally, we would have the Super 50 tournament, the Cricket West Indies Super 50 tournament in November, and then we will have the 4-day tournament in January. It's looking as though we would not have the Super 50 this year, or it's looking as though we would not have any cricket this year at all. So we're still waiting for official word, but in the meantime, we are working to improve the standard of play from the players. We're working on their technical skills, their fitness, mental skills presently. And that will continue in October and November. And we will have them ready for any tournament that might come up. And we are thinking that in the new year, we may have a tournament, and we have to keep them focused so that they will be engaging in competitive cricket. What we plan to do also from a competitive level, if we don't have a Cricket West Indies tournament this year, is that in November we are planning to arrange a series of competitive matches with the best players in the Windward Islands. So you can have a Windwards A versus a Windwards B, and we plan to stream those matches as well, so that those around the Caribbean and around the world can see what we have at the Windwards level. Our players have not been exposed as some of the other players before. We've seen a lot of other Caribbean players in the CPL. We are seeing, I think we had about 19 Barbadians playing. We had about 20 Trinidadians. I think we only had about 8 players from the Windwards, or 7. I think about 5 from the Leewards. And it's simply because we may have a lot of promising players, especially at the T20 level. But our players are not exposed to the people that pick the teams, the owners of the team, as much as the players from Barbados and Trinidad, and those players have a lot of connections as well. So we want to ensure that people can look at the Windwards, look at the Volcanoes, look at players, and perhaps select them for some white ball cricket in the future.
Well, that's a nice segue to the regional, the regional cricket, which you and you spoke under the title of, CEO of Windward Islands, the Windward Islands Cricket Board. But Dwain, what would you give as reasons why this decision has been taken by the Windward Islands Cricket Board to start preparations of a team so early? Gone are the days you will say that the Windwards team will come together just 2 or 3 days before a tournament competition. But now you have a team being prepared months in advance and actually bonding together, as is the case in Grenada. What are some of the reasons to take such a decision?
Well, a lot has been happening at Cricket West Indies. People like to spin, a lot of negative things, but the fact remains that, there are efforts made to have professional units in 6 of the territories. So we have a lot of about 90 first-class players now contracted, under different franchises. So the Windwards is no different. So the players are contracted from the 1st of July of the year till June 30th the following year. So the franchise as well, that's the period that they would operate under. So you would recall the Windwards franchise was actually based in Dominica before. Unfortunately, because of Hurricane Maria in 2018, we had to relocate. In fact, from a Windwards perspective, we always wanted to move the franchise around among the 4 countries. So we started with Dominica. I think we wanted to go to St. Lucia, but at the point in time, they weren't ready. So Grenada, we put our hands up in Grenada to make sure that we have the franchise here. So the players are contractually obligated to train. There's this issue over the years where we have amateur players, and as we know, amateurs cannot beat professionals consistently. So now we have at least 15 contracted and or professional players in each franchise. So a player can actually make a living from cricket. He can turn up to the venue and train the whole day. At the Grenada National Stadium, we have a good facility here. We have a gym. We have the Karani James Athletic Stadium where they can do their fitness testing and so on. Because these days you have to maintain a certain standard. The players do the yo-yo tests and among other tests and so on. So Cricket West Indies is very serious about professionalizing our whole system. Of course, there are challenges. We would never have a perfect system, especially in the Caribbean. But I think most of the franchises are trying to improve. We are trying to upgrade the skills of our coaches. We're trying to get the coaches involved, the ex-players involved. We're trying to get psychologists involved. We have a full-time, we have a physiotherapist, we have a strength and conditioning coach, we have a full-time head coach, we have part-time assistant coaches. All of this is really an effort to get West Indies cricket back up, back up. So those players should be engaged. They're being paid, and of course that is something that didn't happen for them before. But you want to ensure that whilst they're being paid, they are improving. They're improving their technical ability and so on and so forth. There has been a lot of talk of the standard of our play, but the standard will improve at the West Indies level unless we get it right at the lower levels. The first class level is where we have to look at it, and we in Grenada at the Volcanoes, we want to have an environment like a type of high performance environment so that the players can come and see the coaches and really get better. I mean, last year we had Dr. Rudy Webster involved working on the mental side of things because we felt that, that was an area that was sadly lacking, not only in West Indies cricket, but Windwards as well. And we made the efforts and we spent the money to get him on board, and he would have helped some of the players. It's a work in progress, right? You would not see the results overnight, but I think we are working towards excellence, and we are hoping that with the support of the government of Grenada, the Ministry of Sports, and the other countries, the other associations, the St. Vincent National Cricket Association, St. Vincent Cricket Association Inc., St. Lucia National Cricket Association, the DCA, we are hoping that we can play our parts in ensuring our players improve. We will do all we can as administrators to ensure that they improve with what we have. We don't have a lot. But certainly the players today don't really have much excuses. They have more than what we had before. I remember when I came back to Grenada, Junior Murray used to practice on a concrete surface, on the Carnage court and so on. And he didn't have much, and he was playing Test cricket, and he was playing for the West Indies. Now, a player can come to work and he has a strength and conditioning coach waiting there for him. He has a physiotherapist. He has an area of coaches waiting for him. And, we expect him to use the resources that we have and ensure that their cricket improves. And then we can say that we are on our way to improving West Indies cricket.
And just for clarity regarding the makeup of the franchise team that is training locally, you mentioned we have at least probably 6 or so locals, that's Grenadians. Can you just name them? You did mention Preston as one who is still quarantined.
Yeah, for this contract period, we have Devon Smith, who has been there from the inception. So he's there again. We also have Sherman Lewis, and he's back. He played a couple test matches for the West Indies. So those are the 2 senior players. We also have Josh Thomas, who burst on the scene a couple years ago. Exciting fast bowler from Mount Horn. Those 3 are joined by Ryan John, and he's new to the setup. He would have trained with us for a couple years, but wasn't really able to break into the 15 players. And now he has done that based on his performances at the Windwards level and also at the first class level. So that's 4. We have Preston McSween. We have Preston McSween as the 5th person, and the 6th person. Who am I missing?
Emmanuel?
No. Emmanuel is at the University of West Indies, Cave Hill.
Oh, he's
so he was not eligible for a contract. The other player is Dennis Smith. Dennis Smith. We had lost Dennis, the wicketkeeper batsman, the nephew of Devon. We
You
have
lost him
lost
to
him.
Jamaica.
Yeah, in the draft, we have lost him in the draft to Jamaica. And our present coach, Andrew Richardson, at the time was the assistant coach of the
Okay.
Jamaica franchise, and he really wanted Dennis. So those 6 players are contracted, and we have other Grenadian players who are around the system, but they don't have contracts. We mentioned Emmanuel Stewart at UE. We also have Johan Jeremiah, who's done pretty well at UE, and he's done pretty well in the last Windwards tournament that we had. He scored the most runs in the Windwards tournament, so he's been knocking as well. Of course, we have Andre Fletcher, who plays for the Volcanoes. He's not contracted, and if I give you the story, Michael, I don't know if you have time for it, but Fletcher is just something out of this world, because what Fletcher did, Fletcher was eligible for a contract because he would have played in our Windwards tournament, and he played for the Windwards and he did well. But what he did, he allowed one of the other players, because he only had 15 spots, he allowed one of the other players to gain that contract so that they can have some type of financial support. So Fletcher will continue to train with us, but he's not contracted by us. So I thought that says a lot about Andre Fletcher. So those are the players that we have in terms of Grenada. We do have a number of players from the Ministry of Sports under the Emerging Players Program that come to train with the franchise as well. And a number of them train under Junior Murray. I should have mentioned that Murray is one of the assistant coaches at the franchise as well. So the benefit for the Grenada players is that they are able to train in an environment, a high performance environment. So guys that perhaps would be emerging players and so on, guys probably they may be in the Grenada team or trying to get in the Grenada team. They can come in and train with the franchise, and we have a bunch of them who consistently do so, and we've seen the improvements by those players. In terms of the other countries, of course, St. Vincent last year had about 6 players contracted. Now they have 4. They have the opening batsman Desron Maloney, who made his debut at both levels last year, the 50-over tournament and the 4-day tournament, and he actually scored a half century on debut in both formats. So he's back with us. We also have, along with Maloney coming back from St. Vincent, Kenneth Denbar, the off spinner. Then we have Obed McCoy, who played some white ball cricket for the West Indies, also played for the St. Lucia Zooks. He's back with us as well. And then we have, for the first time in terms of a contract, we have Kieron Kotoy. He's a young man who has been knocking for years, but studies at the University of the West Indies would have kept him out of the loop in terms of a contract. So he's done pretty well. In fact, he averaged about over 50 with the bat this year. And he's looking pretty good. He was unlucky not to get into the CPL this year. So he is with us with a contract for the first time this year. For St. Lucia, we have 3 players from St. Lucia this year. Returning, we have Larry Edward, the left arm spinner. And for the first time, we have Kimani Milias, the West Indies under-19 captain. And he's played a couple of matches for the franchise, but he's now contracted for the first time. And we expect him to be here in Grenada very shortly because he was one of the players in CPL. And then we have a young batsman from St. Lucia who's been knocking at the door for some time now, a left-handed batsman, Jamal James. He probably was, in some people's view, a surprise pick this year because we didn't have a tournament. But I think the selectors looked at his consistency over the years. He came into Grenada a couple times to train with the franchise. And from time to time, we do have players coming in. He was one from St. Lucia who came in along with Junior Henry, another young talented batsman from St. Lucia, as well as Dylan John. So these are the St. Lucians who are part and parcel of the franchise. 3 are contracted from St. Lucia. From Dominica, we have Kavim Hodge, the all-rounder who I'm sure is in the minds of the West Indies selectors, at least for A-team selection. He did pretty well over the last couple of years, and he maintains an A-grade contract, and he is there as well. He spent a lot of time in Barbados at the UE system, so he's familiar with a high-performance program. We've lost Alec Atanas, who remains one of our very promising players, but he didn't get a contract this time around, but he's certainly in the plans, and we hope to have him in here perhaps in November to play a series of competitive matches So Hodge at this point in time is the only Dominican, and then we had the option of picking at least two overseas players. Well, at least one overseas player, and this time around we went for the all-rounder Kevin Stout of Barbados, who is a very efficient all-rounder, batting all-rounder, who we believe can help us lift the standard of our game this year. So basically, those are the players that are in the 15. But of course, we do have other players on the fringe who are not contracted, but they are on our depth chart. The selectors will be looking at them. I had mentioned the likes of Junior Henry and DeLon John and probably young Ogis. Those players, we keep looking at them. We have a few players at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill as well. We have John L. Eugene from St. Lucia, Vidal Crandon from St. Lucia, Gian Benjamin from Dominica, and of course we have Emmanuel Stewart and Johan Jeremiah from Grenada. All of these players are in the loop, and these are some of our most promising Windwards players. So although we only contract 15, we have a pool of about 52 players that we can pull from to represent the Windwards at any point in time.
You didn't mention the name Shillingford. Is he still in the setup?
Well, no, but Shillingford he played for us pay for play. So what we did, we contracted him. We contracted him for a few matches last year. He played his Super 50, but he doesn't have a contract. He hasn't had one for the last 2 years. But he's played, and he continues to play for us. So he's one like Fletcher that we can call on to play at any point in time, and they will be on a pay for play basis as well.
Okay, and just for clarity, when a player is contracted, without going into the dollars and cents, what is expected of that player under the contract?
Right. So the players have a number of obligations. The first thing is fitness. They have to maintain a certain fitness level. And so, for example, the Cricket West Indies strength and conditioning personnel or medical team, they send officials around the region to conduct the fitness test. And there's a standard that has to be maintained. And if you don't maintain it, you will be fined. You'll be warned, and then you'll be fined, and you can lose your contract if you consistently fail that fitness test. Luckily for us, we have Cyril Cox working as the strength and conditioning coach. And the last fitness testing that was done, we came second among the region in that fitness testing. So that's the first thing. And secondly, you have to attend the training sessions 5 days a week. In our case, 5 days a week for the duration of the contracted period. And then, of course, you would play for the franchise when called upon. There are other obligations as well. But, from time to time, some players don't perform. And when the contract period comes around, they will be scrutinized, right? So presently we have A, B, and C contracts. So a lot of the players, for example, a couple of them maintain an A contract. So they're paid in a different category from the players in B and in C. So like for a batsman in a 4-day tournament, if you average above 40, you are into A. If you average above 35, between 35 and 40, you are B. And if you average above 30, you are in C. And you look at that over a 2-year period. So a lot of the players that weren't offered contracts, what would have happened to them is perhaps for a 2-year period, they probably were below C. So it was a judgment call from the selectors now whether you should give that player another opportunity or not. And in some cases, a lot of our players would have lost the contract. I mentioned a player I didn't mention before was Roland Cato. He's one perhaps that probably underperformed, so he's not offered a contract this year. But he remains a part of the setup, but he's not contracted. So they have to keep their performances up. They have to keep their fitness up for that year. And then after the year, their performances will be reviewed. We go into Windwards tournaments and so on to determine the next batch of 15 players.
And is it uniform contracts around the region for the various franchises, or Windwards have the same, or Windwards have a different one to, let's say, Barbados, or you're shaking your head, meaning that it's a uniform arrangement around the region?
Yeah, what I'm talking about is a cricket West Indies system.
Okay.
So yeah, so all of the territories would have the same arrangement where they contract 15 players, right? A minimum of 15 players. Of course, some other territories have the resources to contract more players. All right, and they do that. And in cases like Barbados, for example, Barbados may have a lot of players contracted by Cricket West Indies. They may have about 4 or 5 players. So it gives them an opportunity to select about 15 more. In our case, we only have at this point in time Sunil Ambris, who is contracted by Cricket West Indies. So you can say we have Sunil Ambris in the Cricket West Indies system, as well as 15 other players who are contracted, because ultimately the funding comes from Cricket West Indies. So the players are paid by Cricket West Indies.
Okay, then right. Dwain, there is you mentioned earlier about a deficit in the number of players from the Windward Islands, and you made reference to the CPL, for example. You said in a case like that, Windwards only had X amount Leewards, and compared to probably Barbados and Jamaica and Guyana and others. Do you think, Dwain, that and based on your conversation a while ago in terms of the number of even Grenadians, that we have reached a stage where Grenada can have its own franchise? Is that something that has been considered at some point in time? Franchise in regional cricket?
Well, the setup of, if you're talking about CPL, the setup for CPL is really based on 6 franchises.
Well, let's just and for clarity, I should say for probably CPL and probably the 50 overs. So probably you can start with CPL and then the 50 overs.
Yeah, so the CPL is based on 6 franchises, right? You have the so-called Big Four, right? So Barbados would have the franchise, Guyana and stuff like that, right? And the other 2 are really representative, should have been representing the Windwards and the Leewards. But what has happened at that level, the franchise would take the name of the country it is based in. Okay, so what we know as the Windwards franchise, they would have their own owners. In this case, is the St. Lucia Zooks, and they would have their own owners. But because it's based in St. Lucia, of course, the government of St. Lucia would have made a contribution and so on. All right, and so it would take the name of St. Lucia Zooks. St. Lucia Zooks. Similarly with St. Kitts, right? It's really supposed to be a Leewards franchise, but because it's based in St. Kitts, it would take the name of the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. Okay, so from a CPL perspective, unless you have someone that would buy the franchise and wants that franchise based in Grenada or St. Vincent, it's going to remain like that. So what we need is somebody to, perhaps when you're selling one of the franchises, is to put up that money to to maybe purchase a franchise, and you could have the Grenada, whatever it is, right? Unless there's an expansion of the CPL in terms of the number of teams, or unless there's an owner who wants his team to be based in another country, you're probably looking at that same model where you have the 6 teams, and of course you would take the name of where that franchise is based. Okay, I am sure that there was an opportunity for someone to purchase the franchise and have it based in Grenada. I'm sure that has happened before. But as it is now, we just have the St. Lucia Zooks and so on. As it relates to regional cricket, the Cricket West Indies system is really based on the 6 territorial boards, right? We are the Windward Islands, and you have the Leeward Islands, you have the Barbados Cricket Association, and you have the Guyana Cricket Board, and so on and so forth. Okay, if we are looking at improving the standard and the quality of our cricket, I do not see at the Super 50 level, the regional level, I do not see countries within the Windwards or the Leewards, for that matter, going in separately at this point in time. right? I think in the past you had two Windwards teams and two Leewards teams, etc. But at this point in time, based on the structure of our cricket, perhaps we would see maybe a CCC team or we see a team from the US coming in. But I don't see us having a Grenada team at that level. The Grenada team will compete at the Windward Islands level and so on and get a strong Windwards team. That's how I'm seeing it for now.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. But also, I should have added something to that in light of the decision taken by the Commonwealth Games Federation for cricket to be played starting in 2022 with the women's T20, and it's something we need to talk about in terms of women's cricket as well. I'm looking at it in terms of Grenada having its own team participating not just in the regional competition but also in the international arena like the Commonwealth Games in 2022.
Right. So unless it's something like that, a couple of years ago, I think was Barbados that actually competed in the Commonwealth game as a male team. Yeah. So if something like that arises and there is the opportunity, I am sure that we will make all arrangements and all teams eligible. I'm sure that arrangements will be made for that. So we've been hearing the talk about cricket at the Commonwealth Games. We are waiting to see what will happen, what is the procedure, and that type of thing. But of course, you mentioned women's cricket. We still have a lot of work to do with our own women's cricket. That's an area that we are actually struggling in at the moment. At the West Indies level, at the Windwards level, at the Grenada level, we're not seeing the interest. Most people would want to come and blame the authorities and so on, but sometimes you put the systems in place, you invite, but then there's just not the interest for some reason among a lot of the women. You would find that countries produce a couple and you have good programs in maybe St. Lucia, St. Vincent, but we just lacking in that area. Luckily for us, under the leadership of Dr. Kishore Shallow at the Windwards level, we've had earlier this year in February, we've had for the first time a full Windward Islands women's tournament. So we played a 50 over version and we played a T20 version. We didn't have the money. I don't know where we got it from and if we still owing, but we played that tournament and we saw some good potential and we were excited because we were able to pick two teams, a senior team and an under 19 team. There were 4 Grenadians on the under 19 team, including the captain. And we were very excited and hopeful that team would have done well in the West Indies tournament in April, the West Indies under 19 tournament in Trinidad in April. But of course, that wasn't to be. In fact, we have the uniforms, we have everything for those players, but that wasn't to be. So there are some efforts to get it going. On a local note, a couple of years ago, Grenada got involved and tried to help. So we started a program, and just this year at the local level, I think we just had one session. We started an under 15 girls program. So we actually went, we got some girls players from the schools, and we started a Saturday morning program. I think we were only able to conduct 1 or 2 sessions before we had the lockdown. So we were just on the verge of putting something in place. In fact, we started to put it in place already. And, because of the COVID situation, we weren't able to follow through. But we're hoping to do that as long as things come back to something close to normal.
Okay, then I had a question for you that someone sent in earlier today. And it's they said many years ago, cricket was played from January to May and football the rest of the year. In recent times, I have realized that's the question. Well, the person saying that I have realized that football is dominating the calendar. Just recently, the GFA announced the start of their tournaments for the 2020-21 season, and I see games are being played from October all the way through March. I want you to find out from Dwain if there are any communication between the two associations and how is this longer football season affecting cricket?
Yeah, it's challenging. We've liaised with the Ministry of Sports, and we have officials on our board involved with the Ministry of Sports, and it has been brought up because we have an issue with grounds. And at the parish level, especially in certain parishes, the issue would always come up. And maybe I should name the parishes in St. Mark, for example, and St. John, where we don't have many cricket grounds, maybe just one or two in some instances. And it has come up that you're struggling or competing with football. We haven't met with the GFA per se, right? We try to accommodate everybody, and we still try to keep our season between January and May. We still try to do that. We may have the odd tournament in August, like the under 15, and we play during the week and so on. It's not heavily impacted and so on. But it does remain a challenge. We've mentioned it to officials at the Ministry of Sports in terms of scheduling, and we've raised it. And it's a very good point, and it has to be addressed at some point. We recognize the importance of all the sports, and we want to work with everybody to ensure that all of us can use the facilities. So we have a lot of our grounds that have multi-purpose grounds. You talk about Progress Park, and you talk about the Roy St. John playing field in Tantine and so on, La Sagesse and so on. And we've gotten by pretty good in terms of our main grounds. So it has to be addressed further. But to answer the question, no, we've not really sat with the GFA. It has not come down to that as yet, but sooner probably rather than later, we probably would have to do that to ensure that we could come up with something to ensure that both sports are played. And we do have a challenge in that a lot of the guys that play cricket actually go to play football as well, right? So it's always challenging, but we feel that we can manage, but it has to be addressed as well.
Okay, and let me thank you for your leadership of the Grenada Cricket Association, Dwain. And I always ask the question why it is that we don't hear so much about the Grenada Cricket Association in the bad rap, as I should say. You tend to, as the Cricket Association, as any organization, even a home, you have problems within. But somehow the Grenada Cricket Association is always able to manage its problems within the four walls of the institution. And under your leadership, Dwain, I have to ask you, how have you been able to ensure that the Grenada Cricket Association, maintain its mission of developing cricket on the island, and at the same time, providing that level of leadership yourself, leadership among your board members?
That's a good question, Michael. We do have challenges. We do have debate. Michael, no one taught me about cricket administration or sports administration. I just like cricket. But I mean, you have to be smart enough to understand that what we do, we do it for the people that play the game, and we do it for the people that watch the game, the spectators. We do it for these types of things. In cricket, we don't have. If you look at the members of our board, in Grenada, we may not have lawyers or accountants and these types of people on our board, right? But what we do have, we have a number of people who have great passion for the game. They get nothing from it financially, absolutely nothing from it financially, and they come to meetings and they go back into the parishes. Some of the directors, we have a rep from each parish, and they themselves sometimes are like lone rangers in the parish, right? As much efforts as we've made to get clubs running and parish councils going and so on, and some of them have done pretty well. And there seems to always be some type of controversy or something, even at that level. I think the people on our board, we just into cricket, right? I don't think I am not a politician or anything like that. I just like cricket, and we believe that any issues we have, we would discuss you would have disagreements, but you come up with a solution at some point. Some people are not happy, and so, from time to time, you will hear something that is discussed at a meeting out there and whatever. And at the end of the day, people are so passionate that they just want to discuss it. We don't have a lot of money going around in cricket as well. I don't know if that's why a lot of people don't come around, but we don't have a lot. So we have a few people, and we keep it small. We welcome people, we welcome the contributions, and we just feel that we can do what we were put there to do, without any issues. So from time to time, you would find the critics out there, and I like to listen to the critics a lot, because sometimes you learn a lot. You don't know it all, and then we don't have a lot to put into the game financially. So we welcome any suggestions, welcome any input, and it's just a matter of, it's just something natural that we just encourage one another, and we soldier on, because you feel like giving up quite a lot. You hear things about yourself, you hear things about your colleagues that you didn't even know about. But at the end of the day, you remind yourself that we want to see the people like the Emmanuel Stewart and the Preston McSween. You want to be able to sit down and look at ESPN and international television and see one of the guys who stayed here, who he didn't go to England to play anything. We want to see them, making a living from the game, and that's the joy that we get from it. And so we just push that. As I said, we do have a lot of debate in our meetings, but at the end of the day, I think everybody has the same objective, which is really to see players moving on to the next level, and more players coming out and playing and trying to get to the next level.
Okay. Once again, I want to put on record my thanks to you for your leadership in sports administration in Grenada. Dwain, the whole issue of a cricket academy. I was speaking to Roddy Estwick on the program last week, and the issue of cricket academies in the region, something like what we had in Grenada many years ago. Do you foresee that sometime in the future that the West Indies or territorial boards may have to look at ensuring that they have proper cricket academies set up?
Yeah, we do. We do need it. The Cricket West Indies now is, we have ownership of the ground in Antigua, the College Cricket Ground, and of course we have the likes of Graham West and so on, who are given that responsibility to set up those things. And I heard the interview with Roddy Estwick, and he spoke about satellite academies, so that whatever is happening at our main academy or headquarters, we can mirror that in Grenada, in St. Lucia, in Dominica, in Barbados, and I think that is the way to go. When you hear the term academy, you start to think about fancy buildings and a lot of infrastructure and technology and so on. But it's really a program. It's really a program. And I do believe that we have the programs in place. What we do need now is some cooperation from governments. Now, of course, everything is about finance, and I don't think any government at this point in time has sports as a priority. I could be wrong. I'm not, but it's not a priority. No, we're looking at the health and wellness of our citizens and stuff. No, I mean, sport may be an avenue, and so hopefully we will get to the stage where we can have in all our territories and all our countries small academies. And a start could be like this Volcanoes franchise. We see ourselves as a type of high performance center, all right, where we want to follow the programs. Like our head coach, for example, would liaise a lot with the West Indies coach, Phil Simmons, and so on. And at this level, we can do it at this level, and then it will filter down to the various countries, the Dominica, the St. Vincent, and so on. And I think that's the way to go. Finance is always a problem, but with technology now, we should be able to pass on information. And we are now upgrading our coaches and so on, so they would have the knowledge to ensure that personnel in all of the countries have access to an academy-like setup. But it is the way to go. And people think that we have some money somewhere, and we just don't want to do it. I think we want to do it, but sometimes the finances are issues. So we have to work knowing fully well that perhaps the finances will not be there, and what can we do if that finance is not there.
Mhm. Earlier, you mentioned Junior Murray as an assistant coach. You're happy to see that folks like Junior Murray and others getting involved in the development of young players, not just in Grenada, but in the Windward Islands.
Oh yes, and in the West Indies, the ex-players have a role to play, whether as coaches, as mentors, and so on. So in this franchise here, we've had Phoenix Thomas on board, we've had Ian Allen on board, and now Junior Murray as well. And the ex-players always have something to bring back into the system to the players because they've played at the highest level, and there must be something there. And it's I mean, I give Junior some credit because he's now done some of the courses, so he's a level 2 accredited coach, and he's here almost like on a voluntary basis. Of course, he works with the Ministry of Sports, so he's here with us. We had Forex up to this year, but because of the financial constraints and so on, I didn't mention to you, Michael, but the franchise system, the whole Cricket West Indies system, we are on 50% pay in terms of the franchise. The players are getting 50% pay, and the funding for the franchise is at 50%. So we weren't able to, to bring back Forex at this time, but he was involved. So we do like to see the ex-players, the ones that have an interest, involved at different levels. We're hoping to see some of them as strength and conditioning coaches, as well physiotherapists in the future, analysts, and those types of things. We also have Clyde Telesford on board, and one or two of the coaches from the ministry. We have them on board. So that augurs well for cricket in Grenada, and of course the communities in which these coaches operate, because most of our coaches are pretty active. They do a lot of work in the schools and within the parishes as well.
Okay, well, it's good to know that. But as we get ready to wrap up on the program, and if there's anything you need to add, but I want us to go back to the issue of the women's cricket, Dwain, because as it is now, we have one Grenadian on the West Indies, the women's West Indies team, in Afi Fletcher, who's actually on tour with the West Indies in England now. But from the association point of view, what is the what is the action plan for the association in terms of trying to get more women and especially young girls involved in the sport of cricket?
Okay, so I had mentioned a while ago that we started an under 15 training program in March, and it coincided with this whole COVID thing. So that was the first step towards getting it back on track, because we've lost a lot of the players that played in the past. And we realized that, we can't take a 30-year-old now and start to train them. And we had to go to get players from into the schools, into a Saturday morning program. So we started with that. Now, I really believe that it should start in the schools. We don't really have the control in terms of the Ministry of Sports and dictating what should happen, right? But if we are to go anywhere with women's cricket, we have to get interest from the schools, right? So a couple of years ago, there was some personnel from Cricket West Indies here, and we spoke about that, but we didn't see much movement on it. So what we decided to do was to get it from the under 15 level, bearing in mind that there is now an under 19 World Cup at the women's level. And that World Cup was supposed to be in Bangladesh in January. So what we did, we started with the under 15, so that by the time the next under 19 World Cup came around, which would be should have been in 2023, those under 15 players would perhaps be in contention for places. So we want to start at that level. So that is what we had planned. You can put on a tournament now and have 4 teams, and what you might see is that a lot of the players who played years gone by come out and play. But what we want really is the younger generation of players coming through, and that is something that we haven't done very well in Grenada. I must say, St. Vincent Cricket Association and St. Lucia as well, they have excellent women's programs. excellent women's programs, and we've looked to see what they have, and we want to follow suit. But we did start it at the under 15 level, but because of the COVID situation, that has really set us back a bit.
Finally, Dwain, you're aware that it's a challenge for parents to get their youngsters involved in cricket, a sport that they seem to be look at it as a very expensive sport, probably on the likes of even golf,
Yeah.
When there is football and track and field and even basketball, as they call it, the hoops and things like that. So how is the view of you as president of the Grenada Cricket Association looking towards ensuring that even if there's a parent who has a young boy or girl who is interested in the sport of cricket, to get involved?
Yeah, I'm stumped now, Michael. Yeah, that has always been the issue in cricket. Cricket equipment is very, very expensive. We all know that, right? I mean, if you're gonna buy a bat for a young guy, you're talking about 500 EC dollars just for the bat, right? So that has always been a challenge. We've gotten assistance in the past from some people. We've gotten assistance from Cricket West Indies. So we actually distribute like cricket kits and so on, kiddie cricket kits, softball and those types of things, stumps and bats into the schools. But it is difficult and it remains a challenge in terms of sourcing equipment and getting parents to even purchase equipment, because a parent might have 2 or 3 children and you have to send them to school first. So I don't know. I mean, luckily, recently we've had some good talks with some persons in the diaspora. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, Joan Alexander, you may be familiar with the name, Michael, and she has reached out to us to see how she can help in any way. And
Yeah,
and she's very keen as well. And we're speaking to people like her to see what they can do in terms of assisting in that area. But we really need that assistance. The Ministry of Sports, they do their part and so on. I can't say that we have the finance to really provide equipment for individuals. We may have team kit and so on that people use, but I don't have the solution. And we're thinking every day, and all we can do is hope that the parents have been very good. When the guys make the national team and so on, the parents have been very supportive. The communities have been very supportive as well. But it remains a major challenge for us sourcing equipment.
Yeah, very challenging.
So if you know anybody, Michael, I mean, you could. I know you are instrumental in ensuring that we have enough spikes for the track and so on. But if you know anyone, we'd be happy to have. I mean, we're happy with what we have in terms of the interest among the young players, especially. There is an interest there. The players from time to time they find equipment, they get equipment. You have people like Andre Fletcher, who has done a lot for the young people, and we want that to continue. But yeah, we do need some assistance. To continue to try to get our players onto the next level.
Okay, I'll talk to Camillus Alexander, because I think he's coming out with a new brand in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, Camillus, as you know, as indicated, he should be on some future program, because he's an assistant coach with the Atlanta Cricket Academy. Camillus, former Grenada and Windward Islands player. I think he also played youth cricket for the West Indies some years ago. And he's now playing cricket here in the US. In fact, he toured with the USA team to Uganda and other places a few years ago. Dwain, any other thing on the menu for the Grenada Cricket Association?
Well, in terms of the GC, I just want to for the youngsters out there, I just want them to know that we're not finished with cricket. We are going through some trying times, but as I said, in October, we plan to get the ball rolling with the completion of those matches, and we're aiming to stream at least the 2 semi-final matches and the final match from the national stadium, as long as we get the permission to play the matches and we get access to the venues. And we will start with that for this year, and we will continue looking for the go-ahead, because we really would want to start off 2021 with a bang, so we want the parishes to get themselves in order for 2021 from January, that cricket season. And as long as we have an ease in the situation, we expect the parishes, and they've been, trying really. St. Andrews had some problems over the last couple of years, but they seem to be trying to get back on track now. Carriacou has a vibrant league and so on. So, we're hoping that things can ease up so we can continue. From a Windwards perspective, of course, we will continue and we will make efforts to have our teams ready for January, February, whenever there's a competition. But again, we will have competitive matches in hopefully in November. And it's kind of ironic, Michael. This year, we were to host Grenada was supposed to host the Windwards senior tournament in April as well, and that would have given the selectors opportunity to pick the contracted players and so on. And we were going to have it was looking as though we were going to have a 3-day tournament for the first time in umpteen years, because there has been this talk about 2-day cricket. We play 2-day cricket, and we don't want to play 2-day cricket, but we have no choice, because if you're playing 3-day cricket, it will cost you about $50,000 EC more, and we are never able to pay the bill even when we have 2-day cricket. And for the first time this year, we were looking as though, as under the leadership of Dr. Kishore Shallow, it was looking as though we would have been able to play 3-day cricket, and then from there the players come into the franchise, and then still have a series of the best versus the best matches. And we do play 3-day cricket in the franchise, the best versus the best, and 4-day cricket as well. The plans were there. We were supposed to host Jersey, as I mentioned, and amongst other things. And we will continue planning, and we hope to execute most of those tournaments and leagues and so on, hopefully very soon, very soon.
Well, what I can say is that if football can get to go ahead, I see no reason why cricket, because as you indicated, cricket has always been exercising social distances off the field in terms of the crowd. And then even on the field, the players are spaced out. It's not much of a contact sport as how football is a contact. The bowler bowls to the batsman, the fielder field the ball, send the ball into the wicket keep, these sort of things. So I see no reason why cricket should have any problems getting the go ahead from the authorities.
And even at the franchise level, what we've done, I mean, we had to apply to restart, and when the players come in and so on, they get the temperature checks every day, and we go through those things. But I must give credit to the 3 other associations in the Windward Islands, because these associations were the leaders in terms of Caribbean cricket. It wasn't CPL, but the St. Vincent Cricket Association Inc. had a T10 tournament in the middle of the pandemic. And, we were able to view, there was the streaming of the games, there was commentary, very good commentary, and we were able to see some cricket, the first in the region. And then following that, we had the St. Lucia National Cricket Association having their tournament as well, a similar T10 tournament. And just recently, we saw the Dominica Cricket Association having their 2-day final streamed live as well about 2 weekends ago. And Grenada is next. I think the BCA has a tournament going on. So we are the leaders in the Windwards when it comes to getting cricket back on stream. We are the innovators, and we want to make sure that continues to take place, not only in Grenada, but in the Windwards. And of course, we have a strong Windwards brand. I'm sure that West Indies cricket will improve.
All right. And just before we run off, just a question coming in there. What is the Grenada Cricket Association doing to have primary school, cricket in the primary schools? That's
and that's the thing. We don't go into the primary schools. It's up to the Ministry of Sports. What we did have in the primary schools was the kiddie cricket program. So that was our program. We work with the Ministry of Sports, and that was to get mass participation, right? And so we've met with the Ministry of Sports on a number of occasions. And we've met with the minister as well. And told him basically, you have to have the primary school cricket, the hardball cricket, and we are told there is perhaps a tournament in the St. Andrews, and that wasn't good enough. So we can't really go into the primary schools. If it was up to me, it would be done already. So we can just encourage the Ministry of Sports to do that. What we do is that we take on the 15 level and so on, we take the players out and so on at the parish level. But as it relates to school, anything to do with school cricket, it is really the Ministry of Sports, and we encourage as well, but we can't implement.
Okay, yeah, and in some instances, it's both the Ministry of Sports and Education, eh? So
correct,
yeah,
correct. But it's a very good question, because there is a gap there. If we want the complete player, we offer the kiddie cricket program. We offer the coaches in the Ministry of Sports a stipend and so on, and but when it comes to the tournaments and the actual coaching, there is some coaching going on. But if you don't have a proper tournament at that level, on the 11s and so on, you will find that when that player gets to on the 13 and on the 15 levels, that something will be lacking in their development. All right, and it's not a new issue. We've spoken about it, and we are hoping that it will come on stream. Of course, when all these things settle down and so on, sports to me would be one of the avenues, because they won't be in the classroom. You have them on the fields. So if you talk about social distancing, the more people on the fields now, it would mean that you have more people can come to school, go on the field, some in the classroom, and they can rotate and so on. So we're hoping that can really happen. We need that cricket in the schools.
Okay, then, and Dwain, just before you go, I still believe that, and no bias towards you and Cricket Association, but I still believe that the TMR Community College should have a very strong cricket team.
Well, well, that's another matter. That's another matter, Michael. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities there. I have a lot of ideas there, but no one has asked. But I'm willing to put anything in place that can help those players at that level. Those players are eligible to play for the CCC and so on, because all of the players at the tertiary level have that opportunity as well. I am not really in that department, but I am always available. Anything to do with cricket, Michael, I'm always available to assist in any way.
Yeah, that's why I said no bias. I know, as a president of the Cricket Association and also involved with TAMCC, I know you don't want it to, intertwine and these sort of things like that. So, but as you said, it's an opportunity, for cricketers at that level. Well, thank you very much, Dwain, and all the best. And I guess as much based on the circumstances, there wouldn't be any award ceremony for 2020, right? We'll have to look forward to 2021.
Well, Michael, with cricket, anything is possible, huh? Because the schools are having a graduation remotely on Zoom and so on. So yeah. I won't put it out of the picture. We do have our biennial meeting in November. We're scheduled for November. We will have it. We're not going to have a situation where you're going to wait years and because of COVID, we can't have it. We will have it. So I won't rule it out. But anytime there's a face-to-face one, and you are in the country, we hope that you'll be available to host it, because I think the last one, and it didn't get much time on the TV and so on, but I think it was a pretty good event.
Okay then. And you're not up for re-election this time around, no?
Not up for re-election.
Presidency, Grenada Cricket Association.
I don't know what will happen if they want to vote me off, or if someone else wants to come in.
No, I'm asking when your term expires. Then when do your term
expire? Yeah. It's 2 years. So so November. Yeah. November. Yeah. It's 2 years. 2 years. Yeah.
Okay then. Well, I wish you all the best, Dwain, and it's my stamp of approval for you another term at least.
Right. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Again, but thank you for your leadership in terms of the Grenada Cricket Association. It's a model association, I should say, how you have been able to bring leadership and guidance to cricket and to sporting associations in Grenada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, then. So that's Dwain Gill, the president of the Grenada Cricket Association. He's also the acting CEO of the Windward Islands Cricket Board. formerly the Windward Islands Cricket Board of Control, and it's also the CEO of the Windwards Cricket Inc., which is the franchise owner of Windwards Volcano. That's our program for today. Thank you very much, Mr. Shalom. You hide it, eh? Mr. Shalom. Thank you very much. You said great interview, okay? But we hope to have cricket probably in sometime in the month of October in terms of discussions again. We continue the discussions on cricket. And then we go back to hopefully track and field, because this is a time when cricket is in the spotlight. So we're hoping that we can keep the discussion alive. So again, I want to thank Mr. Gill, that's Dwain Gill, for his leadership at that level, Grenada Cricket Association, and also working along with Mr. Kishore Shalor and others. I think they have brought some new and fresh vibrancy into sports administration in the sub-region, and I hope that can translate into bigger things for sports administration. It hasn't been, good probably for the last decade, but we've seen something that at least we hope that can translate into something probably further on. West Indies Cricket Board of Control, well, he's Mr. Shalom is the vice president, but I'm looking forward to Dwain Gill moving on from just the Grenada Cricket Association, probably the Grenada Olympic Committee. You never know. Well, thank you very much. And join us on Saturday for the extended program, the Saturday Sports Special from 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Until then, keep safe.